Good evening. I hope you all have your hot cocoa or apple cider ready because it is not a night to be stuck outside. It is a perfect night to be stuck inside, tuning into some more free Dons content over on the
Mhm.
Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel. And Jimmy, if you're tuning in from Shetland, hopefully you haven't quite blown away. But Calum, we've eventually come together to
Mhm.
discuss the win against Dundee United from the weekend. You were away, I was a bit ill, so we finally managed to come together on Thursday night. But good things come to those that wait. I suppose you could say that about the Dons and Saturday night football as well, because eventually we've managed to secure the 3 points when kicking off on Saturday night.
To quote the great LeBron James, it's about damn time. It's about damn time. I was a bit concerned given our history, but it was fine. Had it on a stream or on a laptop, which I kind of half paid attention to because I was away for the weekend, celebrating my birthday. So I'm relatively informed. I'll be interested, but I think it's a good idea that I'm going to be asking you the questions this time round.
Yeah, I know we're shaking things up like we tend to do when we do these lives, but as always, good to have a few of you joining us on tonight's live. Kaiser, I can see you in the comments. Good to have you along as usual. And for those of you that are maybe tuning in to the audio, which will be released either later on tonight or first thing Friday morning, I hope you enjoy the episode as well. Callum, the victory at the weekend important given what happened on Tuesday night at Livingston, but also I suppose with the results that preceded the game, Hearts, grabbing a very last minute equaliser against Livingston, Rangers and St Mirren dropping points with their 1-1 draw, and Hibs as well, also stuttering again as Derek McInnes continues his fine home form against Hibs in the league. So with the results, before we went into that game, we now, after it, sit 2 points clear in third place on 25 points. And we now have a nice cushion to of 4 points to both Hearts and the two Saints teams, both St Mirren and St Johnstone, and now 5 to Hibs as well. So nice for a change that Aberdeen actually responded to the pressure of results pre-match.
Absolutely, we capitalised. We did watch Soccer Saturday and all the scores rolling in, which was interesting. And I was delighted, admittedly, that basically all the results went our way. However, it didn't fill me with confidence that we were actually going to capitalise because I thought, oh, perfect. It's a night game at Saturday night. Lots have been made about it. It's against Dundee United. They've whacked us 4-0 prior in this season. And it's a perfect chance for us to capitalise. I thought, oh, there's a good chance this could go horrendously wrong and we'll be the laughing
Mm.
stock once again. But thankfully, not the case, and we just find ourselves a nice little cushion, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, it's great, and that was something that we spoke about before Livingston that we wanted to have a cushion. Okay, it's only 2 points to Livingston, but I think to at least have more than three on Hibs and Hearts, with the greatest respect to Livingston, of course, it is really good given the set fixtures that we're going to come back to after this World Cup break that we now find ourselves in.
Yeah, I'm absolutely not looking forward to that. But I was keeping an eye on things whilst I was away, and the team lines were announced, and I was surprised to see Matty Kennedy come in at right wing back.
Mhm.
I was surprised at that. I thought he might come in 'cause he came on, performed very well against Livingston. I
Yeah.
thought he replaced Jaden Richardson. What did you make of the change? And also, how did we start the game? Was it a slow start, as we've seen quite a lot, or flying out the traps?
Yeah, it was a strange to see Matty Kennedy start. I suppose maybe people just expected Jim to go with Richardson, but you make a good point. I think Kennedy, he put a good case for himself forward in that second half display against Livingston, and maybe just getting a bit of reward for that performance and getting the starting berth. And I think again did his case no harms, but Aberdeen as a whole, I felt we really laboured across that first 45, or more up until we actually opened the scoring. I thought we were really lethargic. Again, quite giving the ball away cheaply, kind of similar to the points you were making in that Friday night game against Hibs. But one thing that kind of really wound me up in the first half was a point that you made when we lost at Tannadice. Um, you picked up on the fact that kind of when we were trying to get the ball, excuse me, out wide, we were really kind of slow. I think you picked up in the pre-match conference press conference that we'd said we were going to really try and get in behind United's fullbacks,
Mhm.
and we were quite slow to do that. I kind of felt much the same on Saturday night against United. We looked to exploit United in behind the fullbacks, but getting the ball out to Kennedy and Coulson took time. It was maybe one pass too many, or it was the pass was not quite right, and yeah, things just weren't clicking for us in the opening exchanges.
That is interesting. I think the fact Kennedy came in, obviously naturally a winger, and playing at right wing back, we're at home, is a positive. It's a positive change. But how did you feel Dundee United troubled us in that first half? Did they start positively?
They started on the front foot, but they never really caused us problems. And Kaiser says the same. You know, they had a couple of half chances, and you could probably argue that through the 90 minutes. The only real chance that stands out that I was marginally concerned with in that first half was Glen Middleton, who struck a shot from distance. And I can't remember who it deflects off of, but as soon as it takes that deflection, Calum is rooted to the spot, and there would be nothing he could have done if it found the back of the net. But thankfully for us, it flew past the post. But other than that, you know, they played some nice football and moved the ball about, but it never really threatened. And I think, you know, I was really impressed by how defensively sound we looked through that first half, despite the possession that United had. And I think, you know, those that were there, I know you weren't, but maybe folk that are tuning into this episode will be in agreement that Anthony Stewart probably had his best game for us. You know, he's a player that's come in for a lot of criticism in recent weeks. Maybe some view him as the scapegoat this season, but I think he really stood up, marshalled that defense well, and yeah, I'm really glad for him and Calum as well that we got that clean sheet at home.
Yeah, I think it's been much needed, whether it even be on the road or at home. But Jeff Moore saying that the deflection, in fact, was off Stewart. I remember watching that on the stream and being relatively worried, seeing the ball spinning towards our goal, because it was on a laptop and we had the Newcastle game on at the same time. And I sort of tried to pay attention to them both. And I just saw the ball spinning towards the goal. And I thought, oh, goodness me, this could be bad. But I think the general consensus I did see on social media was that it was probably Anthony Stewart's best game, and he seems to marshal things pretty well, certainly dealing with Stephen Fletcher very well. And I spoke to my brother earlier in the day as well, and he was basically saying much and such the same, but he dealt with Fletcher. However, Dundee United didn't quite deal with Miovski and Duke, the gruesome twosome dynamic duo quite as well. For the goal, it was a brilliant run from Miovski initially, and a good, well-weighted ball to find Duke. I suppose I'm going to ask you anyway, but I think I know your answer. Penalty?
Oh, no question. Absolute stonewaller. There was more, for me, certainty around this penalty than there was around the Hibs penalty, although I thought both of them were absolute stonewallers. But there certainly wasn't the controversy that followed the Hibs game. And yeah, I think the build up to that goal was superb. The way we hit Dundee United on the counter, it was excellent from Bojan to kind of drive wide, pull the United defense one way, as you know, a lot of people seem to pick up on Miovski's movement, the way he kind of pulls defenders one way, which in turn opens up the space for Duke. I did think Bojan had a relatively quiet night by his standards at Pittodrie, but again, I think this is what a lot of people come to the defense of Bojan when, you know, people like myself maybe say, oh, he's had a quiet night, is, well, look at the work he's doing off the ball. And he's gone and, you know, made that pass for Duke. It was perfectly timed. And once again, United, and like many other teams this season, just can't cope with that pace that Duke has. And great that he got there first. If I was a United fan, though, I'd be pretty fuming at my keeper coming flying out quite needlessly.
Madness.
Because, yeah, he's not going anywhere. He's probably going away from goal, if anything. But, yeah, United just can't sort their goalkeepers out this season. But Bojan, I suppose after Tuesday, did you maybe, I know you were watching on a stream, did you have any concern when he was stepping up? Did you even think we might go back to Duke given he'd scored on Tuesday as well?
I was concerned. First of all, admire his confidence as well. And I think that the fact, you know, he'd missed a penalty and that was probably a sign of he's keeping it all out. He's blocking out the haters, baby. I was concerned, but absolutely admire his confidence to step up and slot it away. Having said that, as Ryan says, interesting that Duke didn't keep a hold of penalty responsibilities. I suppose the problem was his penalty against Livingston wasn't that much better. He just absolutely wellied it and it had enough to go past Jamal George. But yeah, I was a little bit shocked. How did you feel when Bojan stepped up? Were you confident that he was going to slot it away? I mean, it's at home, I suppose that maybe helped things. But having said that, he missed the first against Hibs.
To be honest, I was nervous because I think, kind of like Ryan, I almost expected Duke to keep a hold of the penalty responsibilities, as he says in his comment there. But I think it's good for Bojan's confidence that we went back to him. And I think I put in the notes, he tucks it away well, but I guess the argument would be, and I think you picked up on about the penalties are always at a good height for the keeper. And had Birighitti gone the right way, I remember just watching the goal back just before we were recording this. It is at a perfect height if Birighitti goes the right way. So, and the only penalty I can remember with proper conviction was that penalty against Wraith when it felt like it was in the postage stamp. But interesting, you said about his celebration, blocking out the hairs with the fingers in the ears, because Jimmy Neal, good to see you haven't blown off the island of Shetland and you are tuning into that episode, saying that I think Anthony Stewart has been reading Twitter and reacting to the critics, because that was something when you made that I was thinking of as well, because Anthony Stewart has come out in the press today warning the youngsters coming through to maybe close down their social media accounts or certainly stay off social media when we're going through a bad run of form. And I wonder if maybe Anthony Stewart has had a wee look, or maybe has had comments, in his Instagram. I remember speaking to Jack Grimmer, obviously a former player on our show, and I think even he's had to go private on social media as well, maybe because of the way Wickham started the season. So players certainly maybe see it, and it does affect them. And well, if Anthony Stewart's going to react on the pitch with performances like he did on Saturday, then that's obviously the best way to keep those that are unhappy quiet.
Yeah, I think that probably is the best way to shut people up, to be fair. But it is good that he's shown a little bit of leadership off the park. I think that's also come into question, his leadership qualities. But he's shown a bit of leadership, looking after the youngsters a bit as well, which I think can only be a good thing, I suppose. But yeah, we all sometimes in the heat of the moment after games get a little bit over the top, perhaps, and I'm as guilty as anyone for that. But
yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that as well. And I suppose as well this week, I don't know if it's Bojan's agent getting a bit ants in his pants, given it's the off season now, and or there is general interest, but Ream rumored to be interested in launching a 4 million bid for Bojan Miovski come January. What's your thoughts on that initial story, and if that was to come to fruition, what do you think the club's stance would be on that?
Oh, I'm worried that Dave will snap his hand off, to be honest. I think it's a good sign, the fact that the starting point we're talking about already is 4 million. Before a bid even gone in, before there's been a chance to negotiate, we're already starting at a massive profit and money that could do us a lot of good, I'm sure. But I'd like to think that they won't be so short-sighted into, we'll see the 4 million, we'll get excited, potential sell-on clause presumably as well, and snap their hand off, because without him, trying to sign a striker in January, we saw when we brought in Hendry, Kamberi, and Hornby, ironically from Reims, whatever, how difficult it can be to recruit strikers, goal scorers in January that'll hit the ground running. I think it would be vitally important to at least keep him to the end of the season. And if he goes on to score another 20, not another 20, but he goes on to score 20 plus throughout the whole season, then you're probably talking maybe a little bit more money and probably a better move as well, and a better time for him. Not that I'm trying to ship him off or anything. I'd rather we didn't do that, but I think hopefully they'll be sensible and maybe his goals can fire us into Europe as well and make a little bit more money as well that way.
Yeah, and I suppose a comment that came in earlier from Jeff Moran was we need to discuss the Aberdeen Council and the comments around the beach stadium, and I suppose we'll come on to that in maybe a bit more detail towards the back end of the episode. But just wonder if the pound signs are rolling in Dave's eyeballs at the prospect of 4 million and funding that stadium, given kind of the comments that have been coming out in the press this week around that. But a couple of you, Kaiser, Al Mitchell as well, here in the comments there saying, no way Miovski will leave. I can see him being with us till at least the end of the season. Now, I kind of agree with that as well. The point you make there, Calum, about the kind of short-sightedness around if we do sell him. And I think it was a discussion I saw on social media between Johnny Main and I think it was Paul Reaper as well. Apologies if it wasn't you. But they were having a discussion about whether or not the club would be tempted by the 4 million, and is that even still too low for Bojan? But also, given the reward that third place comes with, and we've seen how much Hearts will benefit financially this season from playing group stage football, surely keeping Bojan until the end of the season far outweighs the financial of just 4 million up front in January. Because if he goes on to have a successful second half of the season, you could be looking at 6-8 million as a starting point, given how productive he's been. Because I think, was it his Instagram story where he quoted, there was like a football page on Facebook and it was like, these are the top goal scorers in the European leagues and only 4 of them are the World Cup, and he's like listed alongside like Haaland, Mbappe and that.
It's ridiculous, but I do enjoy it. I think he, as Kaiser said, especially he's still got things to learn, and particularly Kaiser mentioning he's gone missing away from home.
Yeah,
it would be, I feel, a bit too early for him as well. Obviously he's come in and performed very well. Still with a lot to learn. Still with plenty of time to improve as well. So I think at least till the end of the season he probably will be here. Hopefully we could maybe be squeezed another one out of him yet, because if he goes and replicates what he's doing this season in the back end of this season as well as next season, then we could be laughing all the way to the bank. But it was Miovski's goal that gave us the lead back to the Dundee United game on about the 37th minute, right before half time. In the second half, did we sort of look to kick on? I know we had some chances in the search for a second, or was it more backs to the wall kind of stuff, holding out, relying on our sturdy defence?
Yeah. Well, kind of not really on both sides. And even before halftime, we actually had a chance to double the lead. It was kind of poor defensive play by United allowed Duke to kind of latch on to, I can't even remember if it was a long ball over the top. Kind of seemed to just appear out of nothing. And Duke went for the spectacular lob over the keeper. And I thought, at the time at the game, he was doing the right thing. But I remember Brune messaging me being like, he's got so much time. And when I watched Sports Scene back, yeah, he probably does have time to take it down and compose himself. Yeah. But obviously in those sort of situations. So that for me was the big chance to kind of, if we had gone and got the second goal at that point, really kill the game off. And I suppose, like you said, in the second half, I would probably, given how good we've been at home, I was probably expecting us to really look for that second goal, but I don't ever really feel that we were doing that. It was more about game management, which feels interesting that I'm speaking about that, given how critical I've been of Jim Goodwin and his game management. The only thing I do have a criticism on is that I felt at one stage where United were getting on top. Stephen Fletcher put a shot just past the post / over the bar, and Kieran Freeman pulled one back and it just missed him. I felt that was the point where Jim Goodwin should have made the changes around the hour mark, if just to kind of kill the momentum Dundee United were maybe building on, just to try and kill some time. I also did quite like that when Hayden Coulson was being subbed off, he was taking a throw in front of the United fans and he just dropped the ball and tried to run across to the main stand. But Willie Collum was unfortunately having none of that. Kaiser picked up a point that Kennedy should be scoring. And for me, that was the chance that we had in the second half. Some really good attacking play again. And unfortunately, Matty Kennedy doesn't have a right foot. I mean, I'm not one to speak either, because that would have been like me trying to finish. I would have definitely done that on my left foot. Breaking well into the box, and a bit more composure there maybe on ability to finish on his right foot would have seen us go 2-0 up. Also, maybe just wanting a bit too much power with that left foot.
Yeah.
I kind of felt when he hit it, it was going to be one of those shots that, kind of like hit the bar, bounces down and then into the roof of the net and causes just like pandemonium. But yeah, unfortunately not.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I said, like the first half, I think, Jeff picked up on something that Anthony Stewart maybe kind of lost Stephen Fletcher for one opportunity, but when Stephen Fletcher did get an attempt on target, Kelros was there to keep the ball out. And for once, apart from that just kind of momentum, like I said, that I felt United were building, I felt relatively confident in our defence. I didn't really feel that we were going to concede. My issue was that if United did go on and score, we were not going to then find a way back to win the game. That was my fear, because I just felt that we were just kind of letting United dictate out of liked us just to kind of break up that momentum and make changes.
Yeah, I mean, of course you have a gripe, but to be fair,
I do have another one as well, though.
Oh, we'll get to that. It didn't look like the best of games, and that's basically why I didn't pay too much attention
No,
to
it
it. I
wasn't
think
great.
that's sort of the verdict I've got. But certainly from the highlights, it looked as if between the Duke chance, which he probably had more time, as you said, but wouldn't have realised at the time when he got it slightly wrong, and the Kennedy chance, it looked like we had a couple more slightly clear-cut chances, whereas there were more half chances with the Fletcher one at the back post. Sort of he's stretching and he'd do very well to even get it on target to force a save from Kelleros. The cutback as well. It's unfortunate it probably doesn't find a man, but again, sort of another half chance. And then the save where Bruce puts it over the bar, pretty comfortable for him, I felt, compared to Kennedy and Duke's chance, as well as Clarkson putting a ball towards the back post towards Miovski, where I think Miovski ended up colliding with the post. That too. And Adam, my brother, mentioned something about Coulson where he had a chance breaking it in the box, and he could have hit it on his left foot before sort of cutting away again, which perhaps he could have taken on. But I don't know. I didn't see it.
Yeah, I think I remember that. I think he went near post and he could have cut it back instead. But I think, you're right, though. Like, the chances that United did create or conjured up were only half chances. There was always a man there. There was always a blocker in front. And I think at times this season, the opposition have maybe found a yard of space to get the shot away. And Al Mitchell's right. We've got to give them a shout for keeping United out, because too often on this podcast and probably all other Aberdeen podcasts and certainly on social media, we've been very critical of the defence, especially with Jim Goodwin's comments around how easy it is to fix the defence. So I think to go out and get that clean sheet at home and repel the United, what they did try and throw at us, does need to be commended as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not the prettiest performance, not the most convincing of wins, but 3 points nonetheless. Where we took our chance, we managed to limit them pretty well. It would seem, keep them out when they did test us, and ultimately, the most important thing, as I said, get those 3 points. That gives us a cushion in third going into the break. I mean, a semi-final and sitting 2 points clear in third when we're being nowhere near our best. We can barely kick a ball away from home. Pretty good going so far.
Yeah, and I did say I would give Jim Goodwin 7 out of 10 if he won that game on Saturday, and I think he deserves that as well, and I think the players deserve that praise as well, because as I tweeted out from the Twitter account at RTG_podcast, if you don't follow us over there, I felt if that was last season, we don't hold on for that 1-0, we concede, we maybe even go on to completely capitulate in that game. Especially given the tremendous away support that United did bring up. That is the biggest away crowd that has been at Pittodrie this season, 1,700, which is to be commended. I know it's only a short trip up the road, but when you look at how much the Red Pound is putting into the opposition, we certainly don't get that back from away fans as well. So I think, that has to be commended as well. And, I think as well, when you're not playing well or you're not living up to the standards that we've certainly set ourselves at Pittodrie this season, you'll take a scrappy 1-0 at the end of the day. it's the 3 points. We'll take them. Other teams have slipped up earlier in the day. It doesn't matter how they come about. And as I said, my biggest gripe from the game itself was the fact that when you're defending a 1-0 lead and it is a narrow 1-0 lead, we're not playing our best. You don't need your ball boys every time the ball goes out for a Dundee United throw in to be launching the ball at a Dundee United player when our defence is halfway up the pitch, allowing them to start an attack really quick. And there was a same, I think it was, Birighitti was looking to take a quick goal kick. And before the ball even hit the red shed, there you go, there's the ball back. Can we just kill it, please? Because you look at how Celtic use that to their advantage at Parkhead. I'm just thinking that if we are holding on to a 1-0 lead against Celtic or Rangers when we come back from the World Cup break, I am not wanting us to concede a goal because a ball boy has just been like, here you go, let's get the game restarted. Get half of them back in to the main stand. Let's chuck the ballers into the south stand. We've suddenly lost them all. Let's, ultimate shithousery. That's what I want to see when we're defending a 1-0 lead.
Listen, I'm all on board with exactly what you've said. I just find it really funny that your gripe for this game is about the ball boys. Of course, you had to find something, but I do agree. That's the problem with the multi-ball system, baby. But yeah, definitely worth mentioning about the Celtic and Rangers game because we'll need to slow it down. I mean, if we're going for it, we're going at them. By all means, get us the ball quickly, take things quickly. But come on, the ball boys will learn a little bit tactical now. So I'm sure they've got plenty of time to study the art of shithousery between now and then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and good to see another good atmosphere under the lights at Pittodrie. I'm sure Section S provided good atmosphere with the away end. The Red Shed was also in fine voice as well. Good atmosphere. It's just great to see some, people coming away from Pittodrie happy because, boy, we didn't get that a lot over the course of the last couple of seasons.
No, absolutely not. I think it's vitally important as well going into that big break because had we then lost 2 on the bounce or even just dropped points at home to Dundee United, who are sitting bottom of the league, I think the mood in camp right now would be very, very different. It would have been a very long sort of 5 weeks. But right now, we've got a little bit of a cushion. We've not been at our best. There's still room to improve. Goodwin's got a lot of time to do so over this break. So yeah, I think people seem to be generally quite happy, and I think rightly so, because otherwise, the mood could have been very different had the result not gone our way this time.
Yeah, exactly. As Jim Goodwin said, it's an emotional city, and the emotions are certainly high and in good spirits after that. And you said Jim Goodwin has a lot of time to work with the squad, and in doing so, he's taken the squad across to stateside to Atlanta. As an Aberdeen 11, I think it's safe to say we'll call it an Aberdeen 11, given some of the players didn't travel with full vaccinations, etc. Took on an Atlanta U17 / unregistered players, U18s.
Whatever it was.
Yeah, whatever it was. A glorified friendly for commercial benefits is what we'll call it, or scrimmage if you're an American viewer. But it ultimately saw the Aberdeen 11 come out 1-0 winners as Leighton Clarkson adds to his highlight reel. Just all seems to be his loan spell is. A wonderful strike. Calum, did you enjoy it or did you enjoy your nap instead?
I fell asleep about 5 minutes in the second half because the second half was boring, and then I realized, oh yeah, I can put it on my TV. It's on YouTube, and then was sliding on my bed, and then I was like, oh, this is quite cozy. Football's been rubbish. I fell asleep and missed the only good part of the game. Thankfully, I did hear them speak about hot cocoa and apple cider vinegar or whatever it was. So there's at least that. But no, yeah, fell asleep. Pretty typical, really, isn't it?
Yeah, to be honest, the commentary team from Atlanta did an excellent job. Had fairly done their research, albeit couldn't identify Hayden Coulson and Leighton Clarkson correctly. But yeah, I really enjoyed the Americanisms throughout the game. But I don't think you were the only one that was struggling to stay awake because I did enjoy the chat facility on the Atlanta YouTube channel where someone asked if they had any paint for watching.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, mentioned by Al Mitchell. However, the mic was broken for commentary. It wasn't good. The audio wasn't good. That's the one criticism I would have.
I mean, the camera angles were a bit ropey. If you were hungover, that would have definitely put you over the edge.
I think so, but thankfully my hangover had subsided by that point. I was just a sleepy little boy.
Yeah. What did you make then? I suppose because I put in the chat last night. If anyone had any questions, for us to discuss, and I think it was Jack. Kozer said, "Was this game worthwhile, or will this trip be worthwhile from an Aberdeen perspective?" Game maybe not so much. Well, I'm sure Vicente Bazowin's not thinking it after picking up an injury, but yeah, I'm sure Dave Cormack will think it was worthwhile from a commercial point of view. And fair play to those of you from Aberdeen and Scotland that travel over to Atlanta. Although I'm sure those of you from Peterhead and Fraser were looking for any excuse to leave those places.
Wow, way to alienate them, Glenn. Goodness me. In answer to Jack's question, the match definitely wasn't worth it, I feel like, because I know that some players, played a bit of football that I haven't seen so much, but at the same time, it's 5 weeks until the next game, so it's not going to do them any good,
Yeah.
really. I think it will be more beneficial off the park, and not only in terms of sort of commercial ways and sort of maybe establishing our name over there slightly a little bit more and things like that. But also, Jim Goodwin's talked a lot about being able to share ideas with the Atlanta United staff, whether that's the coaching side of things or the sort of network of scouting and things like that. So I feel like that'll be perhaps more beneficial. And then, well, I suppose it's probably the first chance they've really had given the pandemic as well. So maybe we will start to see benefits of the partnership, because so far, not seen too many of them. But I think we've all been very skeptical. Certainly I have. Anyway, I think the Ronnie Hernandez thing did not help. But
Yeah.
regardless,
Yeah, I did.
maybe it'll
I
help the suits. I don't know.
I did enjoy when the commentator picked up on the fact that this match was a highlight of why the partnership is so good for both teams, and they've seen the benefit of it. And I was thinking, what fucking benefits there been so far, other than Ronnie Hernandez has finally managed to get himself closer to his family. I mean, I know Jack McKenzie was supposed to go out and play I think for that team um, pre-COVID. Unfortunately, COVID struck, so he ended up staying. But other than that, I've not heard of any other players rumored to go out. I mean, their number 41 last night, the guy that wore gloves and short sleeves, I mean, he stood out in the first half, not just because he was wearing short sleeves and gloves, because I thought he was quite direct. And then Skokes are saying their number 37 played in the second half. He looked quite good. Albeit though I think he could give Vinny and Duke a run for some of the dives he was throwing about, because he was very lightweight, shall we say, at any sort of contact. But for a friendly Calum, it's safe to say the Atlanta boys didn't hold back with some of the challenges either.
The boy loved it. I mean, Jack McKenzie, I remember him getting very angry at one point.
Robert
Ross
Corey,
McCrory
actually.
wasn't too happy as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, so it was. I think they were probably playing like. Well, I guess they maybe had a point to prove. I don't really know. Some of them were saying they're going off to college after. I don't really understand how it works over there. But I think some of them probably had a point to prove, and they thought, we're playing against men, so we'll treat them like that. And even though it was a friendly, they definitely got in amongst it, which I quite enjoyed. I suppose it made it a little bit less tedious, I guess is maybe the word you could use.
Yeah, true. And I suppose it's also provided some good social media content as well. Big fan of Duke's Q&A, especially his answer to what he enjoys about being his favourite part of the atmosphere. And also his fashion sense. That cowboy picture will go down in AFC folklore, I think, eventually.
Absolutely gorgeous. It's made me love him even more.
Yeah. As Sculpture says as well, though, the young guys got a run out on TV. Well, certainly for those of us that tuned in anyway, good exposure for them. And as I said last night, I think some of them certainly held their own. A lot of them impressed. I was really impressed by Adam Emsley. He seemed very lively when he came on, as did Finlay Mitchell. As well, good opportunity for these guys to go across to with the first team, get some experience being away with the first team, and get some minutes as well. Who knows, as maybe part of this partnership, the club look at putting them to Atlanta. Personally, I would rather have them have minutes in Scotland as well. But good chance for them, especially when you have the likes of some of the first team players not playing. Also, Calum, good to see that Calum Roberts is alive.
Yeah, great news. I think everyone was surprised when that picture was posted on social media of him in training. You thought it was Matty Kennedy
Yep.
for a start, so I think that tells you all you need to know. But it's good that he's fit enough to train at least. And you know, with the break, you'd think he would build himself up and be able to be involved with us again. For the first team once we're back from the break, but certainly good for the youngsters going and getting involved. I think Jim Goodwin mentioned in the Red TV interview as well that he's putting on an extra few sessions for them as well, so he can work with them a bit closer, maybe see a bit more of what they're about, and work on things too. So it can only be a good thing, a good experience for them, and should they be called upon, they'll be well integrated, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's a good point because Jim Goodwin was asked by Stephanie Daly a few weeks ago about Lewis Pirrie, who's obviously only 15 but attracting interest from Premiership clubs down south. And obviously Jim Goodwin saying because he's only 15, he can't get involved in the first team just now, certainly the match day squad, because they have to be 16. So you're absolutely right. Good opportunity with these extra sessions, Jim Goodwin, to really get a good insight into some of these players. Because if they're good enough, let's get them involved, and maybe there's going to be opportunities with the Scottish Cup 4th round coming up. Depending on who we get, you could maybe take some of them to get some, again, more match day experience and maybe minutes under their belts as well. Kaiser was asking who the big boy that came on for Jack Milne near the end was. I'm not sure who he was, but he's fucking huge. I remember seeing the picture that the academy tweeted. I think it was 7 or 8 players that went over, and he sticks out like a sore thumb because he's a good 7 foot tall.
Was he bigger than Jack Milne, do you think? Because he's huge as well.
Yeah, I think he was bigger than Jack Milne.
But yeah, and he's probably still only sort of 16, 17, so still time to grow. He's probably not done yet.
Yeah. Interesting. I suppose, given the fact that we've gone over there and it's a plastic pitch, rightly, obviously not seeing Johnny Hayes, but still no sign of Dante Polvara, although he is with the squad. I guess we've seen him with the photos. What do you think is going to happen to Dante? Because there's kind of been no kind of sounds about whether or not he is injured or not.
It's weird. I think I've seen him in some of the training stuff, possibly. I can't quite remember though. But it is odd. You thought that would maybe be the ideal sort of chance for him to showcase what he can do and maybe stake his claim. Certainly since some of their players are about to go off to college, and he was the best college player or whatever it is they do over there. So bizarre. I don't know. We've seen very little of him. He started at City Park. Since then, he came on at Easter Road, if I remember correctly, and maybe another substitution appearance here or there. But it's a curious case because he was brought over. Obviously hadn't played at much first team football regularly. It's a very odd one. I think perhaps maybe a loan move might be on the horizon in January, and then see where it goes from there. Unfortunately, I don't know when his contract is up, so that would maybe help me judge. But it's certainly an odd one.
Yeah, it is, but I'm sure if he is training, it's a good opportunity to get some fitness into the legs. But yeah, our U18s definitely did a good job in that second half to impress those of us back in Scotland watching, and they certainly more than impressed the Atlanta commentators as well. So that rounds off the action pre-World Cup. So we'll see what is to come over the next few weeks before we come back. But we'll look at some other news, and there's a few comments that have come in that we will discuss as well, Calum. But as Jeff previously brought up, obviously the council have come out this week and mentioned funding for the new stadium. Kind of feels like a little bit of a hurdle, a little bit of a setback, this latest news, doesn't it?
It feels like they're going, oh, please, please, please stay in the city. Oh, you want us to help you? No, don't be so silly. That's what it feels like. They're begging us to stay in the city, which, I'm all for when the sort of plans and things like that first came out with making about their proposal. I was like, oh, wow, they're being useful. This could be great. A bit of a stumbling block. It does feel like Hopefully they'll be able to iron that out. I believe they've got some sort of a meeting together in December. Somebody the 12th sticks out in my mind. I don't know why. I could be making it up. Don't quote me on it. So hopefully things can be resolved then, because I think, well, certainly for me personally, I would love for them to, keep the stadium in the city a stone's throw from Pittodrie. I just think it makes for a better all-round match day experience.
Yeah, I just don't see how the council can push ahead with a regeneration project for that area without the club and without the stadium in that area. I mean, we've all seen how decimated Union Street has become over the last few years, and I think that will the city will further demise if we move the club out of it. I just hope to hell that, if the club can't provide, well, which I don't know how the council are expecting the club to provide funding points just now when we don't know the full costing of the stadium. We don't just revert back to Kingsford, because that is just going to be terrible. Kingsford as well for our match day experience. That's why I think we need to stay in the town as well. But interesting point from Lee Seymour, because it was something that Rob Wicks spoke about when I chatted to him on the podcast as well about the new stadium, was that the club are hoping to have a stadium of between 16 and 18,000 capacity. Now, obviously, the attendance on Saturday night's game against Dundee United was over 17,000. So if we went for the smaller scale of 16,000, you've got over 1,000 fans locked out. Now, some would argue, well, that's the whole away end, given they took 1,700, so you would still technically get all the home support that wanted to be there in. Limiting the away support to 900 or so isn't bad. That's what we get down in Glasgow. What's your thoughts? Should we be kind of aiming towards the 18,000 instead?
I think there's no point building anything bigger than Pittodrie. That's just unnecessary cost right now. I don't think reducing it down to something like 16,000 is a wise idea. For example, the two fixtures around Christmas against Celtic and Rangers, I'm sure they'll be very well attended around the festive period. People desperate to go again. Games like that. But I'll throughout the season so far, it has been sort of dotting around that 15,000 mark. And if things are going to get better, they keep wanting to grow the team on the park and the club off the park. 16,000 just seems stupid. It seems silly. 18,000, something like that, maybe more would benefit. I know it's only 2,000, but that can make all the difference. I just think it's important that there is room for expansion if they are going to go ahead and build this new stadium, wherever it may be. I think there has to be room to grow, because if not, what's the point? You're building that and then limiting yourself, potentially growing even further, potentially keeping fans out who would want to be going. And I know that then creates like a demand for tickets and more likely to sell out all the time or whatever. But it just seems silly if there's not room to get better. Why would you not want room to get better?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think some of the figures, though, that Aberdeen have kind of put forward, I think the ABZ guys, they shared the image from the proposal about the club's kind of estimated figures around like attendances for a rugby game, outdoor concert, the women's game. And look, I'm not doubting that the women will attract a good crowd. But I think that the club, putting in an estimated 12,000 for 3 games is quite ambitious. I think even attracting the sort of numbers that they want for concerts means you're taking that away from Tekka. Do the club know that they're going to be able to guarantee that? I think Rob Wicks did kind of speak about that slightly. There just seems to be some stuff that is maybe a bit fantasy.
Yeah, I think that is probably a good word to use. Right now, everything does sort of seem to be up in the air. He seems to be hearing quite a lot of good ideas. However, I don't know what some of it's based off of, really. Basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Interesting. Skokes are saying, 20,000, better to have a few seats extra for bigger games. See, I quite like the way Rob Wicks pitched that around about the cost. Is it worth paying that extra couple £100,000 to just have seats empty? Or would you rather save that couple 100,000 and go for an 18,000 seater stadium instead, and have that packed, have that sort of atmosphere that we've seen at the Hibs game, the Dundee United game in recent week, and I'm sure that we'll see in the upcoming Old Firm games in December when we come back from that World Cup, because you're absolutely right, they will be well attended, especially after we've had this break for so long. And given that our festive fixtures against St Mirren, which has been moved to a 12:30 kickoff away from home, and then Kilmarnock are both away, so we actually don't have any festive period fixtures. So these are the only opportunity for to see the Dons at home this for the remaining of 2022.
Yeah, I think 18,000 certainly seems far more reasonable than 16,000. I think you're just limiting yourself at that point.
Yeah.
And yeah, even then, 18,000 with room for expansion. We want to grow, baby.
Yeah, I think as long as you have an option to expand in there, you don't necessarily have to just go full guns blazing. I think, yeah, that's very sensible, Calum. Right, we could, I suppose, chat about the stadium for a long time, but we'll move on. As Ryan has asked, who would you both pick for the best and least impressive summer signing at this point? Will we go for best first?
Best first, I think, probably has to be. It was probably between two, actually. Three. Oh, God, it's difficult. Miovski. It has to be Miovski. I think there is obviously two certainly very obvious close contenders, but to come in after getting relegated in the Hungarian First Division with MTK Budapest, hitting the ground running, a totally new country, totally new language, and to have scored sort of 12 goals or whatever it is in all competitions, I think at this point, pretty darn good at such a young age. I think he has to be the best. Although, are you going to pick one of the other two I'm perhaps alluding to?
Yeah, I'm gonna go for Duke just
Fair.
because you can't not love him. The way I've brought up many times before, that rear end, the way he shields off defenders with it, his explosive pace, his finishing ability is just extremely impressive, and his attitude in wanting to impress the fans week in,
Yeah.
week out as well. And yeah, I think the other person you were alluding to was going to be Yilba Ramadani.
Yeah, it was. I think for entertainment value, Duke would probably get it. To be fair, because he's a jack in the box, is how I'm going to describe it. And
Yeah.
yeah, special mention to Ramadan. I think it could have been got any three of them because I think Ram has been absolutely brilliant as well. But your least
Yeah, the way
impressive
he
one? Oh no,
sorry, the way Ramadani just kind of engages with the red shed at full time
yeah,
after games as well is just, he is a player that gets it. So yeah, I think yeah, he does deserve a mention in there. But
mhm.
it's going to be hard to overshadow what Duke and Miovski are doing. And I suppose it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens when the whole Player of the Year voting comes out and see how close
I
it
know.
is. Look forward to being there and seeing what happens.
We're
Uh,
actually going to be spoiled for choice for once. Wow.
yeah, I know. Yeah, no. Well, Leighton Clarkson's sewing up the goal of the season to himself, so at least we're got choice in something else.
Yeah, that's true. And talking of choice, I'll let you go first. Least impressive summer signing.
It's got to be Shaden Morris for me.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you could have probably gone for Jaden Richardson, but I don't think I expected too much when we
Yeah,
signed him. The immediate reviews from Notts County fans probably affected that. But Shane Morris, when you pay money for a young winger and you think, oh, could be exciting, and we've just barely even seen him. So probably him, but he's still got plenty of time to get better. So I'm not going to write him off now.
yeah. I think you're absolutely right. It was probably people will probably expect us to choose between Jaden Richardson, Shaden Morris. Maybe some people will throw in Calum Roberts' name as well, but it's hard to judge him off 20 minutes. But
Actually,
I
yeah,
think
might be Calum Roberts given the goals he scored. Oh, God.
But given the fact that Shaden's actually had more minutes, signed for a decent fee, rumored to be anyway, um, but maybe it's also down to the fact that Jim Goodwin's, changed formations and some of these wingers are going to struggle for game time now this season. But anytime he's had his opportunity, I've just been less than impressed. That Partick Thistle game especially really frustrated me when he came on. And I just thought he was very poor. I see a few people also mentioning Vinny's form this season as well as maybe been dipped. But obviously, he wasn't a summer signing, or
Yeah.
maybe he'd be up there for me this season as well.
It is upsetting me the way Vinny's going, but right now it's just not a place for him in the team. His time will come. He's still only 21. He'll come good.
Yeah, and I suppose that's what Lee mentions then. Is he on his way out, or is he just the victim of other players doing well at the minute? And I think it is just a victim of things working just now for
Yeah.
other players in the formation provided.
Yeah, I feel sorry for him, but pretty good problem to have, admittedly.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we just look at some of the players then, Kel Roast is the only player to play every minute of this season so far. Anthony Stewart just with 7 minutes less. Interesting to pick up, only 5 players have started every game. The other 3 being Ramadani, McCrory and Bojan Miovski. So do you think we're kind of getting a bit of a spine of the team then with those 5? Albeit
Yeah.
McCrory's position isn't confirmed.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is, if you look at those 5 players, well, they're all in the centre of the park. So to have 5 players who have started every game, I think that's a pretty good spot to be in. 5 of your 11 every week have played every game. That consistency in the lineup, anyway, if the performances aren't quite there, but hopefully the performances certainly will come. But yeah, it's pretty mental that Stewart there's only 7 minutes where he's not played, and Ramadani only 9.
Yeah, and that Stewart one was obviously when we were chasing the game at Livingston when
Yeah.
he got taken off. But I guess quite interesting as well is the fact that Ramadani and McCrory are over nearly 200 minutes ahead of the next midfielder as well. So kind of signals we haven't really worked out our best midfield options yet. I know obviously Johnny Hayes' numbers are going to be slightly affected given his recent injury as well, but maybe cause for concern around that sort of area when we've got January coming up?
Yeah, possibly. I think as well as obviously a right-sided centre-back perhaps, or just a centre-back in any capacity.
Or a left centre-back for
Yeah.
the Celtic game coming up.
Well, yeah, true. Yeah, a centre-back in any sort of capacity in that case, and right back, right wing back. I think another centre midfielder might be another room for improvement in January, especially with whatever the hell's going on Povara, whether we see him go out on loan or whatever. I think centre mid's probably the next spot, and I mean, Clayton Clarkson can be very good at times. Connor Barron too, and Ramadani, but I just think Barron and Clarkson quite similar. And then for your only other alternative, if Paul Vara's not going to be involved, is Ross McCrory, which then messes up the defence. Then someone else in there might be a good idea. Something offers a bit of a difference.
Yeah, because I suppose the only kind of option we've got off the bench now is Vinny or Matty Kennedy. So,
and even then, neither of them traditionally proper centre midfielders.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, someone that can maybe do a box-to-box job or kind of just do the dirty job in midfield, especially if Ramadani was to pick up an injury, God help us. Before the season, though, Calum, we did our predictions on who would be top goal scorer. I think we both went for Bojan for top goal scorer. He's currently sitting with 11. Assists, though, you said Johnny. And I think I went for Vinny. Look very silly now because Johnny Hayes is currently at this point in the season leading the team in assists with 5. Next nearest contender is Duke and Hayden Coulson, both sitting on 2. So we maybe need to see a bit more from our midfield in terms of providing assists for the front 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's quite concerning that the next after Johnny Hayes, who that's why I was looking so smug, because I predicted him. Very smart from me. It's a striker and a left back, left wing back, and they've only got 2 each. And that is a bit of a concern in terms of assists. So hopefully, maybe, I don't know, I suppose Clarkson and Barron both pretty creative. Yeah, as you said, maybe more of a box-to-box sort of midfielder in January would be welcome. I'm just happy that I got my prediction right so far in terms of Johnny Hayes, and he's well clear, but still time to go.
Yeah, and another one that you'll be smug about as well, although could prove costly, coming up with the heavy run of fixtures at the back end of the year is Yilber Ramadani currently sitting on 4 bookings. We had a wee go at who'd be the most booked players, and I'm sure it's 5 before a suspension kicks in. So,
Yeah.
although I'm not sure like how automatic the suspension is, so if Yilber was to be booked against Celtic, if that means he misses the Rangers game, which really gives me a lot of fear.
Yeah.
Although I guess you would get McCrory back into midfield and Scales would come into the defence
Quite
because
inevitable. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Scales would obviously miss that Celtic game. And I think I went for Ross McCrory, and he's currently sitting on 3 alongside Hayden Coulson as well. So
Yeah.
we've certainly not been necessarily the softest touches, although we have been in some times when we've got defeated heavily. But yeah, good to see that you'll certainly be happy anyway with your predictions.
I am so far, and at some point, I'm sure it does go into I think when you get past the halfway point or something like that, it gets extended. So if you've not reached your suspension or whatever, it goes to 10 or something like that. I'm sure it does
Mhm.
that. Certainly in some leagues anyway. Not sure if it's ours. So hopefully Ramadani will make it that far. But even then, I'm sure he'll catch up to 10 pretty soon.
Yeah, and then good to see Mark Leslie there, as you highlighted there. It was Blair McKenzie was the giant, and good to see that's what he's going to be referred to
Mhm.
in our team. But yeah, good to see some of the U18s coming through, impressing last night. And good to fill an hour of your Thursday night. For those of you that have tuned in with us on the show tonight, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a good one tonight, Calum.
Absolutely, thoroughly enjoyed it. It's going to be weird. We're going to have to fill some time between now and the return. I mean, I'm sure the World Cup will absolutely help that, about 3 games a day. But nope,
Mm.
thoroughly enjoyed it, and thanks very much to all of you getting involved as well. It makes our job a lot easier, certainly when one of us hasn't seen the game.
Yeah, but I think even then we still managed to give it a good shot in reviewing most of the talking points. I still managed to get my gripes out as well,
Yes,
of course,
always.
because always you've got to have that covered. And thanks to those of you as well that have posed questions for us to discuss on the show tonight as well. Thank you for those of you that have commented throughout as well, liked the episode on YouTube. And of course, if you are tuning into the audio, remember to hit that like button or subscribe wherever. Thank you very much. On you go. You want to add something as well?
Just thanks very much. Make sure you subscribe, follow us, and Football Manager content when there's no real football other than the World Cup. My channel,
Yeah.
Calm Right. Check that out.
Yeah, I was going to say, at least Callum will keep you ticking
Thank
over
you.
with content until we're back after the World Cup. We'll maybe chuck in the week leading up to the Celtic game, maybe just covering any news that has gone on. But we'll take a little couple weeks break, and then obviously we'll be hitting the ground running with a lot of content to fill
Mhm.
when we come back. There's a lot of games to fill in. So thank you very much to all of you for tuning in. Until next time, we'll see you then.